Hey, welcome to the channel. We hope that you enjoy today's stories and check out the chapters on the video to see all the stories for today. But before we get into this video, subscribe to the channel and hit that bell icon to get notified when we release a new video. So let's get into the video.
I prayed to get an experience with a jinn or a demon, and I wish I never did. I thought about it and think it is time to tell my story. This is a true story that happened to me. I am not here to prove to skeptics but just to tell my story. Those who have experienced anything similar to this will know that it is possible. Before this encounter, I didn't have any experience with the jinn and I had no idea what they were capable of. I am going to tell my story now, but it will be long. It all started when I was 13 to 14. I am 21 now. I used to watch ghost shows for fun as entertainment, but I never believed what I saw could happen to me. I believed it was possible, but I had my doubts. One night I did something dumb. I was so curious about the existence of jinns that I sat in prayer one night, and after I finished my prayer, I called out to Allah, and I asked Allah, God, if jinns are real, let me have an experience of my own. I said something along those lines. Either way, I was asking Allah, God, to prove their existence to me. I don't know why on earth I asked for that. I know it was dumb, but I was curious, and this is where it all started. Once I said that, Allah, God, answered my prayer, and something came through. So, one night after I made that prayer, I was getting ready to sleep. I wasn't in bed yet, just sorting out a couple of things in my bedroom. I heard a woman say to me, Go to sleep, sweetheart, in a soft, soothing voice in an accent I have never heard before. This was clear as day, as if she was behind me. At that moment, I hadn't experienced anything like that before, so I just thought it was because I was tired. I fell asleep and I woke up the next morning getting ready for school. I was happy. I was putting on my clothes when something came up to my ear. My left ear started speaking in this deep guttural voice that no human man or woman could ever make. It was speaking in a language I have never heard of in my entire life. At that moment, I didn't understand what was happening. I was frozen in fear and it terrified me. All I know is that as soon as it was done, I went frantic to my mother, and everyone was asking me what was wrong. After that incident, I started to feel something watching me. I felt it more when I was alone. It was uncomfortable to be in a room alone. I always had this creepy, scary feeling at certain times of the night. It was almost like it was the perfect opportunity for this thing to attack me. One night it was one of those uncomfortable nights, so I lay in my bed listening to Quran with earphones when this thing came up to my ear again and blocked the sound of the Quran playing in my ear almost as if it completely muffled out my earphones, and then it began to speak in this deep low guttural voice in a language I can't understand. It freaked me out. I was shaking and scared. One thing about me was I stayed on my prayers, and I read and listened to Quran constantly. But if I ever missed my prayer, this thing would come for me. When I missed a prayer, it was almost like an opportunity for it to come after me. It hated prayer. One time, when I stood to pray on my own, I said Allahu Akbar loudly, and this thing screamed, No, in a high-pitched voice. This jinn would also constantly growl during the night at the bottom of the stairs like an animal. So, I'm going to tell you the last 3 experiences I had with this jinn. One night I went to my cousin's house, and the house was mainly full of female family members. The only male was a boy who wasn't older than the age of 7. One night I woke up out of everyone in the room and I was fast asleep. I could hear snores and I got up, went to the toilet, did my business and came out. Bear in mind, in Islam you are supposed to say a dua, a prayer of protection, before entering the toilet, because there are evil jinns that love living in the toilet. I didn't do this. When I came out, I heard his jinn laugh at me with its unnaturally deep voice and say my name. I can see you, almost like it was singing. You know, in horror movies when kids sing in a creepy way, Yes, like that, but imagine a deep, dark, demonic voice. I went back to the room terrified, thinking about what just happened. The only thing that comforted me was that I wasn't sleeping alone in that room. Shortly after this experience, I went down to the kitchen late at night to get some water, and I had that same feeling again that something was watching me, but I ignored it. Was common at this point. Just before I got to the stairs, I looked at the corridor leading to the living room. The light in the kitchen was still on, which gave some illumination. Bear in mind the living room door was wide open so I could see into it. When I looked in, I saw a tall dark figure, darker than the room, walking through the living room. It reached the ceiling, that's how tall it was. He had a dark top hat on, and I couldn't see any features on its face. It had what looked like a long dark jacket that reached above its feet. It was through the living room, but the direction it was walking towards was just a wall. Anyways, I didn't want to find out where it went. I went up the stairs to my room. One of the final experiences I had was I was asleep one night and I woke to a hand touching my feet. I felt fingers wrap around my ankles, like I felt each individual finger slowly wrapping around my ankles. Everyone else was asleep, and when I looked, no one was there. Eventually, it all stopped the same way. I asked Allah to show me. Allah removed this thing. But this was a couple of months to a year. But when it stopped, this jinn never came back.
Do you like listening to these stories? Do you want to hear more of them? Then click that like button, subscribe to the channel and hit that notification bell. And check the description for links to more videos and interesting stories.
I saw a patient that didn't exist. I don't know how this happened. I'm still perplexed by it 5 years later. I was starting out in practice as a healthcare provider in private practice. Our practice had set up cameras to monitor front desk activities /outside/hallway for security and emergency reasons, as we are in a large metro area with a moderate to high crime rate. So, utilizing a very well-known yellow booking software, some will know, I received an appointment request. The appointment request had no insurance listed, only a name. For the sake of HIPAA, I won't be saying the name or sex or gender of the individual. Let's say it's JD for short. The appointment is never confirmed via phone, and JD had an international hashtag. JD shows up, and for the most part, it was a standard visit. Normal work, etc. Think of it as an annual physical, but without abnormalities. I did my usual banter: what do you do for work? Where are you from? Etc. etc. They were pretty blunt/short in answering, and again, given the location where the practice was, I was not taken aback. I will say, I was confused about the lack of accent this individual had. It seemed pretty standard for the area, yet where they claimed to be from. There were no distinctive markings or features other than the person's height, which was well above average for either sex, that is, taller than average cis male or male at birth, or cis female or female at birth. The appointment ends. They pay in cash and make no follow-up, the standard "don't call me, I'll call you." The day was pretty busy, so I wasn't able to do the note then and there. So at the end of the day, I sat down to do my notes and noticed that JD was not in the note tally, meaning there was one patient missing from the total, so I checked the system thinking that the FD might have forgotten. Since it's a cash note, these tend to not be as pressing to smaller practices, as they do not need to submit this to insurance companies for reimbursement. The appointment was not there, so I decided to check the booking app to pull their info. The appointment was not there either. So, I asked the front desk what happened, and they said they didn't know what or whom I was referring to. We had seen over 50 people collectively that day, so I let it slide. I did the note but did not add any info other than the one told me by the patient, and I made a note of the international number but couldn't remember the code. Flash forward to 2 to 3 days later. I was still thinking about the situation and remembered the cameras. I told the front desk to look at the video with me. I needed to know I wasn't crazy, and to my astonishment there clear as day is the patient talking to me in the hallway and checking out in the FD, with the FD writing the transaction on both the cash ledger and the digital ledger. Needless to say, all three of us were in stiller confused. The FD did some snooping, as young people do, and found no record of anything or anybody by what they thought was their name. We called the booking company, and nobody had even made an appointment for that day, at least under my profile. How did the appointment disappear from both our EHR and the booking software? I'm still rattling my brain over this. Any takers for explaining this? Is this a glitch?
Got insanely strange vibes from a guy one night at my work. I'll try to be brisk here. This happened in 2020 when I was in college. Worked at the little on-campus fast food style restaurant as a cashier for that year, doing the late shift, about 7 to 11 o'clock or midnight on weekends. Was always me and one other person, but they were in the back during this whole experience. I'm having my usual semi-boring shift of taking orders and making milkshakes when this group comes in. 3 blonde girls and 1 guy, never seen them around campus. It was a smaller school for reference. The guy is strange, really don't know how to describe him otherwise. Looked plain all things considered, larger build, a shorter guy, tan skin, and dark hair. The only thing about him that seemed immediately odd was his eyes seemed to face opposite directions and might have been mostly pupil weirdly, like they were dilated or something. Frankly, I assumed it was just some sort of eye condition. Maybe he couldn't see very well or something since he seemed a bit stumbly and wouldn't look at people when talking, but he commented on the size of one of the girls' burgers later on, so I wasn't certain. Still, that's not the thing here, that's likely nothing. Weird as this is going to sound, the guy had an aura. Like, palpably, the instant he walked in and entered my line of sight I was just hit with this feeling of euphoria, like a high. Wasn't even that I thought the guy was interesting or good-looking or something rational like that. It's hard to describe, it's like the instant he was even vaguely close to me, the feeling just showed up. I genuinely felt suspicious of it. He and the girls came up to the cash register and ordered. He didn't order, I didn't even speak to him. But as soon as they got close, I got incredibly intense ASMR for no apparent reason. The real stuff I mean, like the medical term. Not the relaxation feeling, the scalp tingling sensation. If I ever normally get it, which is rare, it's from people speaking with an interesting voice/accent. They hadn't said a word. The feeling stays while he's in the main dining area near me, lingers after he walks off into the other room adjoining the dining area, and only slowly fades after he's away for a while. I immediately thought, this doesn't feel natural, as it was happening. It's hard to explain, but you can kind of tell when a feeling you're getting is justified, that you have a reason to feel that way, right? If a nice-looking girl or guy I liked walked up to me, I could understand having a feeling wash over me. I was at work, mildly bored, and just trying to focus on working, and this random average dude just enters the room, and the feeling hits me like a waterfall. Imagine you're walking down a busy street, and one random pedestrian passes you and you're just suddenly feeling extremely good, literally almost high, for no reason whatsoever. It wouldn't make sense and you'd notice it. It wasn't like I was just interested in who this person was. It was literally his proximity to me that forced a feeling on me that I immediately felt suspicious of. It felt forced. I genuinely cannot tell why I got this feeling. He just seems externally like some Joe Schmo who maybe has something up with his eyes. However, it really weirded me out that he seemingly exuded this feeling and has all the girls following him around, bringing some kind of worrying implications to my mind. I get this isn't the most empirical thing to talk about, but I can't really ignore it as it still bothers me to this day. Has anyone else experienced something like this? As I said, I cannot stress this enough, the feeling felt unnatural, and I can't really come up with a good reason why I would have felt like that.
I've been haunted by something for 7 years. I have been haunted by something for roughly 7 to 8 years, and to this day I can't figure out what it exactly is. And before anyone asks, I am psychologically and medically fine and have always been. This all started around 2015 when my electronics would start acting up, and it got worse during the span of 3 years, In 2018, I experienced severe things like sleep paralysis, bruises on my body, even night terrors, and I even got hospitalized for a self-deletion attempt due to it. Another thing was seeing white glowing eyes in the dark, which although obscure, was true. Whispers, too. Mostly at night, either jumbled voices altogether whispering or just my name. The weirdest by far thing I had experienced at that time was skin discoloration, and by that, I mean my skin color was gray, sometimes even a dark gray color on my hands. No explanation was ever given for that. In 2019 it got even worse, which I didn't think was possible until I woke up with cuts on my arms and face. No scratches or cuts. It had stopped for about 3 years, but now it's back, and this time, you guessed it, worse. It started again about 3 weeks ago, and I have been having blackouts and I don't remember most things. Bruises have returned on my legs, and I have been having trouble sleeping. There is no logical explanation behind any of this, for me anyway. So, I thought I would give Reddit a shot. Please, help. I can't keep living like this.
We hope you enjoyed listening to today's stories. If you want to see more stories, check out these videos or check the links in the description for more videos. And don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel. And ring that notification bell.